Women have the power to transform this world. We can end crime and violence if we all agree to do one thing: share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the Female Solution.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday edition of the Female Solution Global broadcast. I'm Naima Latif, your host for this evening as we explore part 4 of a special series entitled Service. We're introducing you to something that is inevitable in the evolution of our society, and that is an economic system that is not controlled by any central authority, but is in fact controlled by the people. Many people are being inspired and guided to create something different as we see evidence of our current present day society falling apart. Now, some people may be in a state of distress about this, but the fact of the matter is, we are living in a time of transformation. The old way is on its way out, and a new way is evolving, simply because people are awakening and they're realizing we can no longer continue a system that creates suffering. It's time for a change. And before we begin with part 4, we're going to share with you a message that reminds us of why we must change and what it is we are ending so that we can create a society where everyone can live and enjoy abundance. We'll be right back, so stay with us.
Because my little brother, in which we're doing this documentary for, Douglas Robinson, your death will not be in vain.
He was a heck of a great dude.
And I love Doug. Doug loved me.
Just being around him, he had a good spirit. He was a healing person.
They are there.
Get SROs back.
When you give to the poor,
should not be forced out of their neighborhoods when it goes through a period of transformation.
Because there are too many people who are losing their homes to taxes because they can't pay a $1,000 tax bill.
This is why we must change the world in which we live. It doesn't make sense for people to be suffering when there is an overabundance of everything that we need. And the fact of the matter is, it doesn't cost to live. And we have reminded in parts 1, 2, and 3, all of you of that reality, that there is no such thing as a cost of living. The earth is free and has always been free. So why are we paying to live? Why are we doing that? The air is free. The water is free. It comes out of the ground for absolutely free. Everything that grows on the ground is given to us for absolutely free. It doesn't cost to live. Why are we paying? Why are we working in order to pay someone? And why are we believing that people own the earth? They do not. We were at one point living in a society where people simply shared. They traded what they had and they bartered and came to an agreement as to what was valuable and what its value meant in terms of other items that could be traded. So money became a means of exchange and a means of determining value. However, rather than the people themselves deciding, I'll trade you a box of firewood for a plow to till my soil, people decided to use items and determine the worth of those items. Now, we have been using a variety of things, coins made out of gold. But the fact of the matter is, nothing has value unless you give it value. Shiny rocks in and of themselves have no value. Things are only valued based on what you choose to give it as value. It can represent a certain amount of time spent doing something. It can represent a certain amount of land that you wish to use for something. But all value placed on items used as currency only have the value that people agree it has. Gold only had value when people decided that it had value. Other societies were using other things as a means of trade. So shiny rocks meant nothing. We can't eat it. So what we're going through now is an awakening, a realization that the current system of banking and finance is not only unfair, it's been corrupted to the point where it no longer provides a means for people to fairly exchange and fairly create commerce and fairly provide for the needs of others. It has become a cruel means of depriving many people of the basic things they need to survive. And so in the process of us awakening to this reality, people are being inspired to create different systems, different things to use as currency. And currency is only whatever a group of people agree that it is. Being able to undo the deep programming that has people believing that they can only do what they are told and allowed to do by the government is a big process of deprogramming. And what has had to happen is that people have had to become angry enough to question authority. And that's what we're experiencing now. The anger that people feel over having their rights dismissed as unimportant. And the anger is giving rise to an awakening and a realization that the system that they have been agreeing to is not only unfair, it is exploitive and cruel. And it produces what we saw: people living outside in the cold, even when there are empty buildings that could house them. People not being able to eat food, even as restaurants and households toss out food in the garbage that is still good to eat. Even as farmers lay fields barren rather than farm because there is an agreement to create a lack in order to raise prices. We're living in a time where poverty is an artificial manufactured state of being by those that we have allowed to condition us to believe that they own the earth, and no one owns the earth. So even though we have involved ourselves in a very complicated system of property ownership, we just as easily have the power to disentangle ourselves. And we are choosing to do that in this first step, and recognizing that those who have been allowed to assume positions of authority are being cruel and insensitive and endangering our lives and the lives of our children. This is a process of awakening so that we may create a system that is fair and just for all. This is happening so that we may choose a different way of interacting, one that is not controlled by any central government, and one that is based on fairness and the desire for the well-being of others. There are many different barter and exchange organizations, even cryptocurrency systems being developed. Many different ways that people are choosing to exchange what they need with others who have something that they want, and to do it in a way in which there is no conflict. Today, we're continuing to introduce you to a very simple system, first instituted by a few people that you know, like, and trust. And this system, called S.E.R.V.I.C.E, which stands for Sharing Earth's Resources, Voluntarily Implementing Creative Exchange, is basically designed for you to begin the process of returning to that way of life which existed before the institution of money, when people simply shared, when people simply exchanged, when people simply provided. Now, there is a history. And the interesting thing is that there's been a book written about the history of money. And if you think about how the monetary system developed, it came as a result of people forcibly taking over land inhabited by other people. This is definitely not a thing that is emphasized as we teach history in schools. Not in a way that would make a child reflect on the unfairness. But now it's time for us to reflect. When did we start the process of deciding that some human beings own the earth? And why did we agree to this? As people traveled around the world, they encountered other cultures. And there are many cultures in which this was not a way of life. The indigenous cultures in America did not fence off property. Many traveled and following the seasons, settled in a place, acquired food, and shared the land with the animals that were already there. Some they used for food. But the idea of taking a piece of land and roping it off and fencing it off and not allowing people to travel and charging people a fee to sit down on it or to build a home on it, that was not the culture, because it doesn't make sense. So for those who imported that idea and physically killed the people who were already here, they then defined it as a sensible way of life. And we have allowed that to be the way we live without questioning the history. We're going to take a quick break and come back and we'll talk about a book on the history of money, just so that we can begin to think. Why are we allowing anybody to claim ownership of the earth when the earth was given to all of us for absolutely free in order for us to share? We'll be right back after this quick break. We want you to stick and stay. Don't stray away. You are watching The Female Solution, and this is part 4 of a series entitled Service. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
We are global transformers, changing the world from the way it is to the way it should be. We are one. Wherever we live on this earth, we are one human family. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to extend a greeting to all the members of our family, whenever and wherever you may be listening around the world. To our family in China, Ni Hao. In India, Namaste. In Japan, Konnichiwa. In Korea, Annyeonghaseyo. In Russia, Здравствуйте. In Germany, Guten Tag. In Poland, Dzień dobry. In France, Bonjour. In Spain, Hola. In Italy, Ciao. In Egypt, Ahlan wa sahlan. In Ghana, Akwaba. In Nigeria, Peleo. In South Africa, Sawubona. In Senegal, Nangadef. In Kenya, Jambo. In Israel, Shalom. In Pakistan, Afghanistan, Palestine, and Saudi Arabia, Assalamu alaikum. Greetings, and may peace be upon you all. Join us live on the on-air radio network. Call 727-731-5192.
We want to talk to you. Yes, we do want to talk to you. And we want you to talk to us too. Because as we awaken, we take back our power to create systems that we control. Now, there is a history to the system that we have collectively agreed to honor. And an author has written a book about it. Interestingly enough, called The History of Money from Bartering to Banking. And you can see this on Amazon. Of course, we're simply sharing this with you because the author, Martin Jenkins, has gone through the process of breaking down how people used to simply exchange. And then complicated systems were set up, first based on gold and the determined value of these shiny rocks. Again, they have no value other than the value that we choose to give them. And then printed paper with the faces of government leaders designated to represent a certain value. We're putting that thought out there because in order for us to take this step toward mental independence, we have to undo the belief that what we're using actually is something that's etched in stone and non-removable. There was a time when the United States was in a state of division, and the southern states formed their own confederacy. Well, we know the history of that. The southern states lost the war. But before that time, they had printed up money that was given a value. And then when the South lost the war and they no longer had a central government based in the South, the money no longer had value. And there was a saying even that arose, is not worth a Confederate, because the Confederate dollars had no value because the government did not exist because the southern states lost the war. So as we look at world governments and nations that choose to create a currency that they honor within the nation, they have the power to exchange, to buy and sell among those that honor that currency that they have created. We are seeing what's happening in Burkina Faso with President Ibrahim Traore, who is saying that African nations are going to use a currency that Africa creates among the African nations and will not be relying on the European currency. That's going to have an impact because they're taking back their power to define what money is. All of us have that same power if we only recognize it. So in parts 1, first of all, we wanted to remind you that as we look at the history of money, we also look at the fact that anyone can create a currency. All it takes is the agreement of those with whom you are using it to trade. Once there's an agreement, then you have a means of exchange. and anyone can create a means of exchange. This is why cryptocurrencies are developing, because people are agreeing. So in part one, we remind you that people cannot charge for that which belongs to everyone, such as the air. You cannot charge for air. The air is free. And yet, so is the ground. And we're being charged to sit on the ground, to build on the ground, to live on the ground. Are you not paying rent? Are you not paying a mortgage? Now you can say, well, certain companies, they built it and, had to get bank financing. And why? What if on the land you chose to build, what if the people who helped you build it simply helped you build it? What if they had the materials and they chose to use the labor to build your homes? The house would not cost you anything. So who owns the land? And that is the question. Because the idea that a government owns the land is what creates the state of war, in which when a group of people no longer agree to allow someone to own the land. We are not questioning the history of how we were persuaded to agree to that which really does not exist: ownership of land. So in order for us to undo this quagmire that has enveloped the earth, the people who are agreeing to a system that abuses them has to awaken and recognize it's only possible because they're agreeing to it. Just like if someone were to charge you for air and you were to agree to pay, and you were to allow them to suffocate you if you didn't pay. No one's doing that. So now let's take a look at undoing the thought that makes us believe that we must pay for that which we already control. We can create a moneyless society in which we are empowered to live for free. And so we remind you simply that all it takes is a realization. In order for you to empower yourself, you first have to realize that there's enough for everyone on the earth, for everyone to have what's needed for a comfortable life. The earth gives us water, soil, sunlight, plants, rocks, and minerals, everything we need to eat, drink, grow food, build shelter, and design coverings for our bodies for absolutely free. All we have to do is choose to share. The first step is to recognize that we always had the power to do so. We always had the power to do so. And in the beginning, as is told in the book, The History of Money, that's what people did. Yes, there were fewer people, but that's what people did. They simply shared. And everyone ate, everyone had shelter, everyone had coverings when inclement weather required it. Everyone simply shared and cooperated. That's what they did. So in order for us to create a moneyless society, we first have to remember we had one before and we can do it again. The first step is to change the mind. Next, we ask you to name the possessions you have but don't use. We have so many things that others could use that are stashed away in boxes, bags, and closets. Our possessions are like blood. It's useless unless it circulates. What if we simply shared what we had and enriched others with the things we aren't using? What if we received points for the things we gave others and we use those points to get what we need from others who choose to share with us? point value. Give everything you have a point value. Now, the next step, part 3, we asked you to recognize the skills you can offer to others. There are many skills and talents that we have, and there is much work to be done to help others. What if we just gave our time to others, helping where our abilities are needed? And what if we received points for each minute we gave our time to help others, and we use those points to get what we need from others who choose to use their time to help us? So now our time, every minute, is worth a point. So now this becomes the currency that we are using. This becomes the currency that we are agreeing has value. The points we give our things and the points we give our time. These are the things that we are agreeing has value. And we are agreeing among a specific group of people. So this is part 4, in which you identify people that you know, like, and trust. And this is to be the foundation of your service group. People with whom you are going to use the currency that you are agreeing has value. The points you're giving for each minute of your time, the points that you're giving for the items that you wish to trade and exchange. Everybody may not be ready to freely share, but at least 5 special friends that you know, like, and trust would be willing to implement this organized system of exchange. This is your service group. And within this group, you can obtain items you need. You can receive the work you need done using a system that establishes equal value for everyone's time and for everyone's possessions. This is how you create a currency that you are using among your special group. Now, the group will expand, but before it can expand, you have to lay a foundation that is strong, because you are creating something that will replace a system that many are believing is irreplaceable. And you must have the independent mind, the power of your mind, to free yourself from the willing enslavement to a system in which people have convinced you that they control the earth, and they do not. It is here for free for all of us to share. But we can only extract ourselves from the system that has enslaved us when we recognize we have agreed to the enslavement. Harriet Tubman, that great emancipator, said, "I freed hundreds of slaves, and I'd have freed thousands more if they only knew they were enslaved." We are agreeing to pay for that which we already have. But we can remove ourselves from dependency on that system once we decide to exchange, to cooperate, to trade, beginning with those 5 people that we know, like, and trust, so that we can develop a system of providing for each other's needs without going outside to those who make us pay with a currency created by someone else. We're going to take another break, give you a moment to reflect on the power of your choice to free yourself using service. We'll be right back after this next break, so stick and stay. Don't stray away. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome to Master Force with Mushim Suit. Join us each week on Thursdays at 7 a.m. Central, live on Facebook and YouTube on the Female Solution page, as we dive into powerful topics designed to assist you in mastering your life force. Our conversations feature a diverse lineup of experts, all dedicated to your growth. Tune in weekly to discover new ways to elevate your spirit and raise your vibration. And remember, we are ascending.
What's up, guys? It's Osada, the host of the Gathering of the Griots podcast, part of the Female Solution. Want you to join us every Tuesday morning from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. And guess what we do? We interview authors of the Soulful Chicago Book Fair. The books, the experiences, the lifestyles, all of it with fervor. So be there right on the Soulful Chicago Book Fair YouTube page or on the Female Solution Facebook page. We look forward to having you and all our literary essence. Peace.
And we are back. You're watching the Female Solution, this special 6-part series entitled Service is designed to empower you and to help you recognize what is actually happening in our nation right now. And it's happening for the purpose of awakening people to what happens when you agree to allow others to misuse you. You agree to allow people to have authority over you because they have the appearance of having wealth. Wealth, what is it really? WEALTH, withholding everyone's abundance, letting them hurt. When you have more than you need and you're causing people to suffer, how is that admirable? How is that something that you should seek? So with service, the intention is for the well-being of others. The reason why you are choosing to share, interact, cooperate with others is because you desire their well-being. You desire for them to have what they need. And so because you're desiring for their well-being, you're doing things with the spirit of helping, the spirit of giving. It's different than doing things with the spirit of trying to get over on somebody, get more from them than they give you. And this is why your first group of people have to have certain qualities. We say, identify 5 friends that you know, like, and trust. Well, it's important that these friends have qualities that make them worthy of being part of your service group, because you're creating something that is revolutionizing. the world in which we live and freeing you from the belief that there's not enough and that someone else can impoverish you. So let's take a look at a couple of things that you want to consider when you put together your service group. First of all, we say people that you know. Know those that labor among you is a scriptural saying, and you need to know the character of people that you're selecting because it matters. These have to be people that have the ability to see beyond propaganda and see beyond conditioning in order to try something different. If you suggest something and the first response they have is, oh, that'll never work, then those are not the people. These cannot be people who will try to figure out if what they're providing you is more valuable than what you're providing them, because we've given you a point system. Each item that you're trading is worth 1 point. So if you have someone and you have an item of clothing and you say this is 1 point for my sweater, and they have a pair of pants and say, yeah, but I paid $25 for this pair of pants and it should be worth more than 1 point. Well, then let them sell that using the currency that they're agreeing to participate in and the banking system they're agreeing to participate in. Let them sell that to people participating in that. But for the purpose of this system, every item that you select, and we talked about how you are to list and create the listing of all of your wealth that you have in terms of all of the items that you are using for service points. They're worth 1 point. Now, if there are things that you can't agree to have worth 1 point, then don't use those things. But do not argue with people who are in your service group about the points of your items. It has to be fair. Everything worth 1 point. Same thing with your service points for your time. 1 minute worth 1 point. Now, if you're doing someone a service, perhaps you braid hair. Okay, you've done a hairstyle for someone and it took you 45 minutes. Well, 45 points. And then maybe they're an electrician and they fix some wiring in your house. And maybe it took them an hour. Well, that would be 60 points according to the system. But if they say, well, I usually charge $150 an hour, so it really should be 150 points. Well, that's not the system. The system is 1 point per minute. So yeah, that would equal $60 an hour. Well, I usually get paid $150 an hour. That's not fair. Okay. Then that's not a person you want part of your group, because they're not able to let go of the conditioned mind. In this group, you are agreeing to a uniform standard so that everyone is of equal value. If you still have people who see themselves as of greater value because society says their time is worth more than your time, they are not the person that is of the character for this group. They are still living in the conditioning of this society that is abusing us all, but they're agreeing to that system and they will not let it go for the purpose of creating something that is equal. So you need people who understand that this is the creation of a system of exchange in which everyone is of equal value. That's the first quality that you need to look for. The second quality is you do want someone who has taken the time to acquire some type of skills, something that they can offer, even if it's just time of sweeping the floor. I mean, if that's what they can do, fine. Maybe they don't have computer skills. Maybe they can't design a website. Maybe they can wash dishes. Maybe they have some basic skills, but they must be willing to do that which they can do if they wish to earn points for time spent doing a task. And if they have professional skills, they must be willing to value their professional skills according to the scale that has been agreed upon. 1 point per minute of your time. And within this service group, you want to have various types of skills because you're going to be exchanging skills as needed. So look for people who have skills that are valuable, needed, necessary, and something that you use, something that would enhance your life. Look for people who have invested time in themselves to develop themselves in order to make themselves valuable to the society. Because in a healthy society, everyone contributes something of themselves. And this is the society we're building, a society in which everyone participates. In the past, before the monetary system, people developed the skills necessary to create what was needed, whether it was home building skills, cooking skills, fishing skills, farming skills, sewing skills, whatever is needed for your survival. People took the time to develop the skills so that they could contribute those skills to the society. That's the society we're building, group by group. So think in terms of what you can contribute. What skills can you offer? And think in terms of what skills can the people in your group offer? Because if you need your computer repaired, and within your group, you have a person who works on computers, then they simply come and fix your computer. It costs you no money. You give them points for their time. And maybe within your group, they need their car repaired. And they have points that they can issue to the auto mechanic in your group. And maybe there's somebody in your group that knows how to prepare taxes. Well, they can prepare taxes for the person in the group that needs tax preparation. But maybe that person doesn't need auto repair, but they do need something else from someone else in the group. So you're exchanging points just the way you'd exchange money. But you don't need the money that the outside society has decided is currency because you are creating your own. You are honoring your own currency. And so you want people who have something to offer in terms of skills. You want people who have something to offer in terms of possessions that may be valuable that they are willing to contribute as part of the service points, so that you don't have to go and buy things. With outside currency, you can use your service points. And the great thing about service points, everyone has them. Everyone has them. Because they're simply the points that you give for the value that you have agreed an item or a person's time has. And so we circulate service points, and everyone can participate. So these are qualities you want to consider as you create that first 5 group of service people. And it's important that it be a solid group, because you're perfecting the system before each of you reaches out to select 5 more. This is not multi-level marketing when a person has to pay to get in. But this is expansion after having set a core group and perfected the system of exchange so that you trust each other. That's why you must start out with 5 people that you know, like, and trust, because trust is what will build the foundation. We're going to take one last break, and when we come back, we're going to prepare you for the next step so that you can begin the process of creating a moneyless society. We'll be right back after this last break, so we want you to stay with us.
Mommy teaches the young ninja, teaches him to be cool. Mommy teaches the young ninja, teaches him to take a breath. Mommy teaches the young ninja, teaches him to be cool, teaches him to have a rest. Mommy teaches the young ninja, teaches him to be cool, teaches him to do his best. Mommy teaches the young ninja, teaches him to be cool, teaches him to ace his test. Mommy teaches the young ninja, teaches him to be cool, teaches him to trust himself. Mommy teaches the young ninja, teaches him to be cool, teaches him to choose good food. Mommy teaches the young ninja, teaches him to be cool, teaches him to see his best. Mommy teaches the young ninja, teaches him to be cool. Mommy teaches the
Yes, one of the wonderful books written by one of our fabulous hosts. Join her here tomorrow morning. Master Force Coaching with Mushamsu. And what you will discover is a master teacher preparing you to transform lives. And that is what we do every day on the Female Solution Global broadcast. So if you are watching this or any of our shows, you are of higher consciousness, greater awareness, independent thought, and you are on the level where you are ready to create a new advanced society. This is what service represents: a transformation to an independent state of being in which you are taking control of your future and creating a system of sharing so that everyone can participate in the acquisition of that which is needed for surviving and thriving. There is a means of exchange which all people can participate in if they agree. And this means of exchange will prevent the suffering of those who have been deprived. This is why we are creating something that you have the power to manifest with those 5 people that you know, like, and trust. And the records that you keep of all of your abundance, which includes your possessions and your skills that you offer and receive points for the time you spend. This will gradually wean you off of a monetary system. Now, you may say, well, what about things like my electric bill, my gas bill? What about those things that the other companies own that I have to pay? What about my rent? Well, let's take a look at it. Because at some point, there are those who have already created energy systems that will replace the current energy system that you are paying someone else for. Very shortly, that which already exists will be made known and offered to you. Something that you can participate in using the elements of the earth in the ways we used to know how to do. This knowledge is being withheld because people who wish to keep you paying are not desiring you to know about free energy. But it does exist. Free systems of propelling vehicles, they exist. So as we change the minds of people who have been conditioned to think in terms of profiting off of people and disempowering them by enslaving them to a monetary system, we will have more who come forth and become a part of service systems in which we all give our skill or our possession that is helpful to others in exchange for what we need. There will be a time when it does not cost to heat or cool your home. It will not cost to propel your vehicle. And the land upon which you have your place of residence will not cost you money. Some of you already own your property. And we talk about, what about taxes and so forth and so on? Well, let's take it a step at a time. Because the current system that is very exploitive is falling apart. And that's why there's protests in the streets across the nation. There is conflict between nations about a very exclusionary system that's hurting people. And so we're seeing the beginnings of a transformation. And this is why your first step is to recognize what you're seeing. It is the transformation to a new earth in which everything is free, because we're choosing to simply share. So our next step, step 5 in the system of service, after you have identified those 5 friends that you know, like, and trust, will show you how to exchange simply using your cell phone. And this will empower you to begin to use the things that you have and enrich yourself using the system of service. And we've got a few comments. Eric Laster says, yes, we are creating a record. And he says, wow, this is deep. Yes, it is. Well, we want you to come on back for part 5 in this series that is empowering you to change your life. And this 6-part series is the beginning of a new kind of revolution, one that simply empowers you to use what you already have and to create a currency that everyone has. So eventually, we will all live for free. I'm Naima Latif, and we'll be back week after next. Yes, sharing is the solution. It always was. We'll be back week after next Wednesday evening. Of course, join us for the Let's Get Uncomfortable show with Aaron and Wendy. And the week after that is part 5 of Service, sharing Earth's resources, voluntarily implementing creative exchange. Come on back tomorrow for the Female Solution and Master Force. Master Force with Mu Shem Su. Master Force Coaching. You are a part of the future. Join us every day and be a part of the solution. See you next time. We've come to the end of our show today. If you missed any broadcasts, go to our website for the audio and video archives at www.thefemalesolution.com. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to thank all of you who participated in today's discussions. And to our global family joining us from all around the world, we say thank you. To our family in China, xie xie. India, dhanyavad. Japan, arigato. Korea, kamsamnida. Russia, spasiba. Germany, danke. Poland, dziękuję. France, merci. Spain, gracias. Italy, grazie. Egypt, shukran. Ghana, madasi. Nigeria, eshe. South Africa, ngiyabonga. Senegal, Jareh. Kenya, Asante. Israel, Toda. Pakistan, Shukriya. Afghanistan, Tashakur. Saudi Arabia and Palestine, Shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you, and may peace be upon you and the mercy of God and God's blessings.